again, I'm here with Andy from Snow Camps Europe. My name's Paul from Ski Instructor Academy, and we're here for another episode discussing all matters skiing. So what you got for us this time, Andy?
So it's we've had a question.
A question.
We've had lots of questions, but this one was quite a good one because it's always a hotly debated topic whenever it comes up, and it's people asking about skiing in poor visibility.
Ooh, that's a good one, actually.
So when you can hardly see in front of you, and you get that dizziness feeling, and you don't know what's up and down, and you get a little bit sick, and basically they're asking what are our pointers and things that they can do to help when the visibility goes bad.
Yeah, it's the spa, isn't it? The spa in the bar. The spa in the bar.
Afternoon off.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think the obvious one is, first of all, try to get round it the easiest way, which is take tree-line runs, take anywhere that allows you to have contrast to depth perception. So if you were like this backdrop here that you see on the television, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the glacier. It's a glacier, and a glacier has no trees. It makes it very, very difficult to know up from down when you get that real whiteout. And a lot of people, I remember skiing up there years and years back when I did teach, hearing people, like screaming help in the background, help, I'm lost, when they were just like 10 meters from the T-bar. But they literally just got themselves disorientated because on a glacier, it tends to be just white everything, and there's a few cliffs and rocks, but you don't have that tree line runs. And it's so interesting, you just get near to some trees or even some rocks or something, and of course the other way you cheat is you simply follow somebody else because they will create depth perception again, and that's why as an instructor at the front, from my side, I am useless. I must be the weakest person in the world when it comes to car sickness and things. As a child, I was sick everything. Whether it was car, hovercraft, boat, helicopter, airplane, everything I was sick in. As soon as I'm not in control as the driver, I feel ill in any of those conditions. And even if I'm in a passenger seat car, I can't do it very long. It's a balance problem. It's something in the ears. But weirdly enough, Andy, when I was skiing on the glacier and guiding in those really whiteout conditions and fog, I was fine. And yet the students behind would start feeling sick, and I'd think, why is it that I'm not feeling sick? And I put it down to the fact that as the front person, I was really hyper-focused and hyper-concentrating on what the terrain was in the 1 meter I could see. So I think if you're following somebody, it will make it easier because they create some idea of depth perception again. Is that not the case? So the first tip would be, don't go high up. Stay anywhere that's narrower runs with tree lines, for example, or stay near the trees or near the lift system. Anywhere that creates a depth perception for you, and that cheats your way through the day.
Okay, good, cool.
Don't go off-piste.
Yeah, oh God, no, don't go off-piste at all. Dear God, no. Okay, cool. A couple of good ones there. I quite often put both of my poles onto the ground so I can feel what's up and what's down. So I'll ski with them trailing on the ground.
Yeah. So you have 4 points of contact now.
Yeah, instead of just my feet. And then I think that goes into, it's obviously you need to be able to feel, because if you can't see, then you need to be able to feel. And what I quite often do with groups of better skiers is we do a little bit of feeling exercises where we close our eyes. So literally have them standing across the slope as would be at the end of a turn. Get them to close their eyes and then release the skis, let the skis go into the foreline, then get them to complete a turn. And what you'll normally find is if you say complete the turn and then get them to stop and count to 3, on the first attempt, nearly everybody will fall to the inside. But the more and more you do it, the better they get at it, like anything. And by having their eyes closed, they have to use feeling. And I try to talk to them about using their feet to feel. And then I'll let them ski again without their eyes closed, but then start building it up. So we do one turn with our eyes closed, one turn with our eyes open. And that seems to help.
And I think, so you're talking proprioception, kinesthetic skills, which are very important, which brings me to the point of when I was teaching a blind autistic person, Interestingly, I was shocked to see, and I taught this guy from the beginning of his ski career, so literally had never skied before. But what was really interesting is from the first time he skied, he was centered. And normally people aren't centered. It's one of the things that they find problematic. And clearly, because he was blind, he just had that hypersensitivity. He had that hyper-awareness, fantastic proprioceptional awareness. And as a result, obviously to him, fog didn't matter. That's the one benefit, So, it's interesting. And as the skiing career progressed and got faster and faster, parallel turns, quicker, short turns and everything, it's amazing to see and be around people like that. But it proves how important or how much we rely on our eyes, our lesser students, if you like, rely on their eyes, and how much the expert starts to rely more upon those feelings. So you saying drag the poles is just you saying, now I've got, like I say, a set of stabilizers, but it's more about not using the pole as a contact to the ground hard, but rather a walking, like I don't know how you would call it, like almost like a plumb line to the ground, just dragging it lightly across.
Exactly.
To get some sensation of where you are in space. Yeah.
And then I think the other one, if you are on the glacier and you've not got the benefit of the trees, is you need to listen for the lifts. Listen for the lift and then try and ski alongside the lift, because obviously the lift goes down or the lift takes you up, but it goes back down. And if you can follow literally the lift pylons, especially on the glacier with the two T-bars in the middle.
I think ski runs that would be a good piece of advice, and stick with it. Don't start exploring the mountain on a day like this. Find a run that works on a day like this, and then just ski that run. If it's got the best visibility, then why on earth would you want to go higher? Just stay where you are. But challenge yourself. Don't avoid a day like that, because as you pointed out, that is where you become a good skier, is when you're challenged. And let's face it, if you make relatively decent parallel turns normally down a blue or a red run, your pole plant, you're pretty good. And then all of a sudden you find yourself falling to pieces just because there's a whiteout, or you've got to question your technique at that point. There's something not right. You're not perhaps as good as you think.
And I think don't be afraid to go back. You're not going to go bombing down the run doing short turns in zero visibility. Yeah. So go back to slow, long turns. If you're an intermediate skier, don't worry that you have to go back into a snowplow. I go back to a snowplow all the time when I get in a pickle.
Well, one of the biggest skills ski instructors had, actually, and we see this a lot in the off-piste as well when you're first testing the terrain, is to use a plough parallel.
Yep.
It's often done, a plough parallel as a skill, just like we talked about side slipping and side stepping you were talking about the other day. Yep. It's interesting how important plough parallel is. And of course, nobody, and one of the things we know from Ski Instructor Academy is one of the hardest things and the most failed part of the exams is plough parallel, because nobody quite understands what's it for. I don't need to do this. I can parallel turn. Why should I plough parallel? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But an advanced skier will use it sometimes. For example, let's say you're in an off-piste section and you're not going to be able to build enough speed on the first turn to start making parallel turns down a steep bit of snow. You would use that little side, like that step out, as just a feeling, because you know you're not going fast enough to create a parallel turn. You wouldn't. The problem is sometimes people trying to force a parallel turn without having the right speed to be able to do it on a certain terrain. So it's a great method in the snow.
I remember, and this goes back to my first season, and we were on the glacier, and you took us down what is now Black Mamba.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a powder morning. It used to be a ski route, which it was way better as a ski route than it is as a piste. And it had snowed, and you took us all down there, and you said exactly that. You said, in powder, you need to find the base, and if it's steep, you can't just go straight line in it, do 3 little bounces, and then turn. So use a plough parallel, because by putting that ski out, boof, pressure goes on it. You find the base, and then off we went down a Black Mamba in deep powder.
Yeah. And if somebody wants to know the difference between like a plough parallel and a parallel turn, the significant difference is when you plow parallel, your centre of mass stays within the base of support. Whereas if you imagine you were doing a parallel turn, your centre of mass is crossing over the base of support. And therefore, what Andy was saying there, it makes sense for you to have some security in difficult conditions that you're unsure about by keeping your centre of mass over the top of your base of support. And therefore it's a skill. It's like sidestepping and side-slipping.
Yeah. So don't feel bad if your skiing goes backwards when the visibility is bad, because it happens to all of us.
It's intelligent skiing. It's not going backwards. It's intelligent skiing.
Yeah, it's thinking about
But be aware that this is your opportunity to tune into your feet. And it's your opportunity to realise that you haven't been tuning into your feet. Because the difference is after I'd skied for a number of years, I suddenly realised that whiteout conditions didn't bother me, with the exception of being frustrated with the weather and thinking, oh, it's crap today. But it doesn't matter. I can go at the top. I was at the top of the mountain the other day there with Julian, and he was falling to bits, and, you know, he was often losing me on the run, and he was going, oh, should we go down? Like, you know, it's crap. And I was going, well, actually, I think it's quite good. The snow's really nice, but the visibility doesn't bother me. More what bothers me is crap snow.
the feeling,
You know what I mean? You know, I'd rather ski in bad visibility with lovely snow and nice powdery, you know, than ski in great visibility with those death cookies on the mountain and crunchy bits of ice all over the place. That bothers me more than bad visibility, because as a good skier, you don't rely upon your eyes in the same way. Don't get me wrong, it's better with visibility, but you don't need it, because, and not only that, let's face it, we know them runs, we've skied them thousands of times, you know, so you do know where it drops and where you are in the mountain, you don't get lost. So I get that, but I think those tips are important, but the most important one is don't avoid it, because I think it's an opportunity to improve.
Yeah. How important are goggles in the scheme of things?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're lucky enough to have a pair of Oakley prisms or something with the wonderful ability to enhance light, I mean, some of those goggles are like, you put them on your eyes and it's like switching the lights on, isn't it? Like, it's like, Jesus Christ, I'm going to burn my eyeballs out and there's a whiteout. Some goggles, you know, there's no doubt about it. The tools like that are important. Look at the day, I remember when Hirscher was going down and they made a mistake with his goggles, and the guy had done something to it and it steamed up. That's what the problem was. His goggles steamed up as he went down the race course. And, you know, they had this huge, then, obviously you wouldn't have seen it in England, but in Austria it's a big thing, ski racing, and they had this huge thing afterwards for days and days, and they were discussing everything about goggles and everything about what this guy had done and the mistakes and this, that, the other. They're important, I mean, don't get me wrong, and they literally change the lens of that goggles for every single, you know, degree of light that they're seeing at the time before the race, that they'll have a specific thing. And don't get me wrong, Oakley's not the king of goggles. You know, I just mentioned their goggles at that time because they're renowned to be super good quality. But this is not the time that you want some sort of like single, you know, you want a double anti-fog, you want every physical. And when it comes to the goggles, be careful not to be touching them and, you know, doing weird things inside them, because that really destroys the coating.
Yeah.
And that's where the biggest problem is. Often when you get these foggy, horrible days at the beginning of the season, the snow cannons are going and the stuff freezes on the front of your goggles, and you put your hand across to wipe it off, and bang, your goggles destroyed.
But then again, that's a great opportunity. So if you've got a good visibility day, but you've just skied through a cannon, don't wipe that off your goggles. Do a few turns, because again, with that frozen fake snow on your goggles.
Well, the real reason is to take that snow off. It's really important that you take your hand out your glove, you warm the goggle, melt until it goes to water before you wipe it, because you'll destroy your goggles in one sweep with that icy, cruddy stuff on your goggles. But goggles are important, no doubt about it. You need a good pair, and you don't need to take a lot of people take them off, you know, which is not going to really help you. You need a good pair of goggles. So I would say that's highly recommended.
Okay, so tree line, narrow.
Yep.
Listen for the lifts.
And then you come on to the C word. Now, I hate using the C word, and I promised I wouldn't use it, but having core stability, having an awareness of connectivity is going to be really important. So this is the time where you come back to what was said in previous things. And when I do some maybe physics and skiing on future videos, and I talk about connectivity, is be careful of the vertical. Do not be making vertical up and down too much, but remain more connected to the snow. So imagine, I don't know, a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being maximum pressure, 1 being no pressure at all. Try and just maintain a sort of 5. You can't do it because you have to release the edges and skis, but just try and maintain some connectivity, i.e. some flexion that is under tension of the ankle. Do not end up too much in a forward position, but at the same time remain centered so that you don't disconnect. The disconnection will enhance that sickly feeling almost because you're like on a boat going up and down. So remaining dynamically lower, and I'm being careful not to use the word crouch because I don't really like that word. Dynamically crouching even sounds still restrictive. You want to be dynamically lower. Your center of mass makes sense. You know, why can kids go down the way they do, for example, in that stupid plow position at 4 or 5 years old, screaming down the mountain with them hanging back? It's just because their center of mass is like 2 inches from the floor. So if you can create a lower center of mass, that's not you just ending up in a sort of compressed position that just looks ridiculously contorted, but at the same time not actively releasing the ski from your foot, so you feel the ground underneath you all the time. That would be another thing. And I would say, Andy, ski a little bit two-footed. Rather than being completely unilateral, you know, going from left to right, which is traditional alpine skiing, that's what you're supposed to do, go from the outside to outside. I would say here there's cause for you to be a little bit, not inside heavy, but just being aware that you do have a second ski. It's there for a purpose. And certainly that I wouldn't let that encourage me to widen my stance, because people might say, oh, a wider stance might help. Well, I would argue no. I would still keep your stance fairly much under your shoulders at this level or narrower. But stay connected, don't go up and down. And remember the C word, having some form of core stability tension throughout your spinal mechanics is going to give you that. And avoid over-rotation, which will start to happen in those conditions.
Yeah, for sure it does. And I suppose going back to something we said on part 2 of the question and answers that we put out a week or so ago is, again, before you set off on that run, think about what you're about to do. What do I need to do different? How am I going to do it? What's my goal? Where am I going to get to? Just get yourself ready. And then... Which
brings you on to the last point, I suppose, on this is where Andy says, you know, get yourself ready for the run, this, that, the other. And it's then the visualization of, this is actually a sunny day. This is a beautiful blue sky above me. This is a sunny day. I know this piece, and I'm going to smile, and I'm going to get down there. I'm going to breathe. You know, I'm not going to tense up. I'm not going to be holding my breath like I'm holding in a fart from, you know, in church or something. I'm going to be really actively happy to be out in the air and skiing. And if you're with other people who are nervous, then take the lead. You know, get them close as possible behind you, because you will greatly assist them. Rather than skiing down and looking up and waiting and tapping your pole for them, instead bring them with you. Slow yourself down, but bring them with you. And remember that speed is still very important in skiing, unfortunately. Even in those difficult conditions, they are going to make their life miserable if they've already took a third or a half of the speed off that they usually have. They're going to have sore feet because they're going to be twisting like mad and all sorts to try and get the ski to turn. So that would be my advice first, and I'm sure some of you will have some great tips for skiing in bad snow. I mean, no doubt about it, and we would love to see them in the comments below. Educate us.
Tell us what you do when it gets zero visibility.
Well, that was a brilliant one, that one.
See you
More
on the next
like
one.
that. See you on the next one.
Bye for now.